Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honourable members, we have come together united in sorrow by the terrible events of the past weeks. We're united in grieving for those who lost their lives. These are dark and harrowing times for the families and friends of those who are left behind. The Democratic Alliance wishes to associate itself with the condolences of the government and all the other parties in this House. Sithi, sengathi abalele bangalala ngokuthula. Our thoughts and prayers are with all those who have been affected by this tragedy. More simply put, we have all been affected and moved. Amidst the grief, this great nation will draw upon the resilience and determination which have guided us through many tragedies and difficult times before. While this is not the hour for recriminations, it is the time for difficult and painful questions. The DA welcomes the President's promise to establish an independent judicial commission of inquiry into the Marikana tragedy. This tragedy could have and should have been prevented. Its escalation speaks of a lack of top-level leadership and of ministerial accountability. The Judicial Commission must therefore be established immediately with precise terms of reference, and it must not at any point be downgraded to an internal inquiry. The Commission must specifically establish who authorized the use of live ammunition on the striking workers within the context of how the South African Police Service manages violent strikes. Whoever authorized the use of live ammunition must be held accountable. It must also be revealed on what, if any, intelligence the planning was conducted, and if the National Police Commissioner, Ria Piecha, exercised appropriate judgment and leadership. At what point did she intervene? The Commission must also carefully examine the conduct and the role of the Minister of Police, the Honourable Nathi Mthethwa. At what point did he intervene? In most democracies, a crisis of this magnitude would have immediately precipitated the resignation of the minister and, in many cases, the fall of the government. The DA is concerned that no one in this government seems to be assuming political responsibility for this massacre. We need accountability now. The Minister of Police, the Secretaries General of AMCU and the National Union of Mine Workers, and the CEO of lonmin should carefully consider their positions and, in our view, offer their resignations. Their position is untenable. The Commission must uncover every factor and decision which led to this incident. Its work must be data-driven and not subject to political interference, sentiment, or a misguided desire to make the findings appear more acceptable. The role of every actor, from the mine worker to the trade union leader, the police officer to the board member of lonmin, the responsible government minister to the President himself, must face fair and impartial scrutiny. Although the searing images of this tragedy will remind us of Sharpeville and Boipatong, let us not forget that South Africa today is a different country. We are a constitutional democracy, guided not by terror, but by the majesty of the rule of law. The rule of law must now be allowed to take its course unhindered. Mr. Speaker, this massacre did not take place in a vacuum. It was a long time in the making, and its many causes are well known. As a parliament, we must face up to our own failure to hold the government and the safety and security agencies to account. We must ensure that a tragedy of this magnitude never happens again. I thank you.
I thank the honourable member. I now wish to invite the Honourable GP Lekota to address the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Deputy President, fellow members of the House, I hope that in future, the immensity of the responsibility we all carry in this House will never weigh as heavy as it does today. on my own shoulders. Death is final, and nothing can reverse it. Those who've been shot and killed are gone forever. But as far as we are concerned, in the Congress of the People, this was something that was avoidable. Had we only stuck to the provisions of our national constitution, had we daily ensured that we don't do what we think we like and do that which is prescribed and agreed when we wrote the Constitution. Our Constitution prescribes clearly that there shall only be one police force in this country, and that there shall only be one police service, not police force, police service. And that decision taken by the authors of our Constitution was guided by a long history of the experience of the majority of the people of this country, especially the ones with darker skins. The police force of apartheid mowed down and destroyed lives of 69 people in Sharpeville in 1960, slaughtered others here in Langa in Cape Town. Later on, it did the same thing in Eitenach in Langa. In 1976, little babies, children, were slaughtered by the police force of apartheid, police force of apartheid, and so on and so on. So when the authors of our Constitution declared that there shall be a police service to deal with the citizens of the country, it was educated by that long experience of what it means to live with a police force among citizens. And yet, I cannot overlook the fact that that Constitution having been adopted, on the 1st of April in 2010, the present head of state introduced new ranks, having said that the police must become a police force and no longer a police service. He didn't amend the Constitution, but those words were pronounced. And ranks of general, of colonel, military ranks were introduced. I do not know what training went into these people who did these things. And yet I can recall now again with vivid clarity how that this police, that is now a police force with military ranks, in Vicksburg, when protesters were asking only for water and electricity, shot point blank at Andries Tatane, whose life is gone now. I said at that time as well, that is the beginning. There'll be more to come. I'm not proud that I said that, but I could see the pattern of development. So what happened at Marikana last week? This police force, for days on end, had been interacting with the people there and so on. Where was the executive? I didn't see the minister going there. Labor, police, making interventions that one would have expected from men and women who have a responsibility to protect the lives of the ordinary citizens. I didn't see that. And then what did I see next? Was a situation in which large numbers of young black South Africans in the main, with bulletproofs, armed with machine rifles, automatic machine gun rifles. They were standing there, holding these things, facing the citizens. Whatever the numbers of the workers that were on strike, whatever weapons they were carrying, they could never have been a threat of the extent of those military armed people. They could never have been. And then, of course, I ask the question. I must ask the question. I must ask the question, whatever your noise. I must ask the question,
Order, honorable member.
in this country in which the Constitution does not allow the death sentence, the Constitution does not allow the death sentence, who is this authority who had the right to say to the police, shoot with live ammunition that was definitely going to take life? Who is this authority? Was it the president? Was it the minister of police? Was it the commander of... Who was this person who is above the Constitution, who had the authority to decide that this right to life will be suspended today for this moment, and therefore shoot? I didn't see water cannons. I didn't see tear gas. I didn't see rubber bullets. But live ammunition was unleashed on the people there.
Members,
it was unleashed on the people. So this question must be answered. Who had the authority to waive the right of the people to life, and therefore to mow down those numbers of people that were slaughtered on that day there? Where did we get the authority to change these titles of people, to prepare these young people in a manner in which could only have resulted in this outcome? So we must also ask the question, how many of the striking workers had machine guns? How many of them had even the handguns? How many? And then ask how many live guns were shot at these people. Many of us have gone through those situations times without number. Times without number. And we thought that this constitution that we have will prevent this thing. Never again that would we do this. And now it's being done. And then the leadership says we are shocked. We are shocked. But who was leading? Who ordered? Who gave the orders? Where was the leadership to manage those things? What intelligence reports did the police have? Because when you arm those young people with those machine guns, you must have knowledge that there are machine guns and other things in there. What reports did the intelligence services provide before this command was given for these people to be shot and killed? And then, of course, we have to go beyond that. Because one of the issues about that situation there is the question of another clearly violation of the Constitution, where the ruling party is allied with some of the trade unions that were involved there. POPCRU is affiliated to COSATU, and through in that way is allied to the ruling party. NUM is affiliated to COSATU, and via that allied to the ruling party. Why should we citizens who do not support the ruling party, why should our tax money be used to pay the salaries of your members? Public service members, members of the public service in this country must cease to be allied to any political party. They can vote for any party they want to vote for, but they cannot in a formal overt way be allies to yourselves. And don't pay them with our tax money. Don't pay them with our tax money, because we do not support you. We don't support you. Only those who support you must give their money to you, and others give to us. And you yourself must accept the teachers who are paid with the salaries of all of us, whether we support you or not, cannot be allied to you. You are breaking the Constitution. You are breaking the Constitution. Public servants are for all of us. They are paid by all of us. And please, let them serve all of us evenly. Because the question must arise, and it arose yesterday when we were there. How can we be sure that this police force that is allied to NUM, that is affiliated to COSATU, how can we be sure that they can treat us with the same fairness as with any other worker? Go to any democracy in the world today. Where do you find public servants who are allied to a political party, paid by the tax money of all of the citizens of the country? Must look at ourselves again. The lives of our people have been lost here today. As we speak now, they will never come back to life. So we must say this. Was it by accident when Minister Shabangu visited there, our minister, for all of us, and decided she would only meet with NUM and not meet the other unions, in particular AMCU, who's heavily involved in that? Where is the minister of the AMCU people? We saw the minister of NUM meet with NUM. But the minister of AMCU, where is that minister? So how then can the workers believe? How then can the workers believe that they are getting a fair and even-handed treatment from yourself?
Honourable Member, let me advise you that your time has expired.
I thank you, sir.
I now wish to invite the Honourable Lindiwe to address the House.
While we condemn what has happened in Marikana, let us step back a bit and see what should have been done. The triangle, which is made of the employer, employee, and employee representative, does not work in this mine. Firstly, the employer should have detected that a crisis was looming and instituted a program to counter the problem before the workers went on strike. This is the reason that the mine employs human resource management. Therefore, the employers have failed the workers. The employers should have a plan to engage and to continue to engage the workers while they have been on an unprotected strike for over 2 weeks. Why was this not done? This could have prevented the workers resorting to violence. Secondly, the employees' representatives. Where were they when the employees were furious about the condition of employment? Why did they not engage their members in order to establish what workers were concerned about? If they were truly representative of workers, they sold out the workers. The last leg, Mr. Speaker, of this triangle is the workers themselves. Uma abasebenzi babengabathembi abantu abamameleyo, babengaqoshi ngani ithuba lokuthi bakhomba abantu abambalwa abangakwazi ukuxoxisana nabaqashi babo ukuze bakwazi ukuxoxa nabo, ukuze kuvikelwe ukufa kwabantu, kuvikelwe inhlelo engase yenzeke njengoba yenzekile. Uma abasebenzi babekubona ukuthi le nhlekelele iyaqhubeka and babathembi labantu ababakhetha njengenyunyane zabo, babengayenzi ingane imizamo yokuthi bakuvikele ukufa kwabantu ngayo yonke indlela abangakuvikela ngayo. Ngoba umuntu mesefila akasho lutho, noma ngakhokha R1,000,000 ngomuntu oyedwa akusho lutho lokho, ngoba usuke seyihambile emhlabeni. The IFP therefore finds these three groups at fault. The employer, the employee representative, that is the trade unions, and the workers themselves. But the southern part of this, Mr. Speaker, is those who call the police. To do what? The workers who were not at work did not attack any management or disrupt their workplace except by holding their labor. Why were police called to disperse the crowd? Is not the duty of the employers to negotiate with employees at the workplace? It is not the duty of the police to negotiate on behalf of the management. Management knew full well that the police are trying to do a certain job. Why did the management involve the police under these circumstances? On the other hand, why did the police agree to act on behalf of the employers instead of management doing their own job, doing their own dirty work? Police who were sent to Marikana didn't have a skill to negotiate on behalf of the management. If not, what is expected of them in a volatile situation like that? Who gave the instruction for the police to kill? And why? Workers were not their workplace. They were on the hill outside the mine. They were not a threat to this mine management. This is a tragedy, Mr. Speaker. This was not supposed to happen out of the triangle drawn before. It seems that everybody has failed. Before have died. People have died, including some of the police. The IFP does not know how this country will learn to avoid this type of massacres, which has happened in 1960, 1976, and now in Marikana. Everyone involved in the massacre are victims of this tragedy. Mine management must take most of the blame of this tragedy. They failed to realize that the workers wanted to deal with the issues affecting them every minute of their day, yet they failed to engage workers fully. How dare the employer give the ultimatum of the workers to return to work when their appeal is still mourning, and others are still in hospital, and others are still in custody? Police are at fault because they were used by the mine management to solve their problem instead of protecting both sides. I hope that the workers have now learned that negotiation is the key to success. It is unfortunate that this culture of violence has brought us in by the armed struggle, which, among other things, brought in the idea of making South Africa ungovernable. Whenever there has been a ration of a municipality, there is a violence and destruction of property, like libraries and others. It is a tragedy that we are not talking about it. This culture seems to be entrenched in our nation's psyche. We must do something to change that and remove this culture of violence from our psyche. We do not expect to confront these tragedies like Marikana next time. On behalf of the IFP and my leader, we would like to pass our condolences to the families and all those who lost their lives in the massacre, and wish those who have sustained injuries a speedy recovery. We hope that they will be consoled by the grace of God.
I thank the honourable member, and I wish to invite the Honourable J.J. Mcgluwa to address the House.
Honourable Speaker, this is indeed a tragic time in our country's history. I think every South African is trying to come to terms with what have happened. It is difficult to make sense, Speaker, of what is a complex issue. There are a multitude of failures from all sides. As a result, 44 people sacrificed their lives as a culmination of these failures. Hopefully, the Commission of Inquiry will reveal precisely each actor's culpability in this disaster. From the police to the unions, to the lack of leadership in government, to a mining company that shows no remorse and proved to be completely incapable of containing the rising tensions at the mine. There are so many dimensions, Speaker, to this tragedy, but I am only concerned with one dimension, and that is the human dimension. I am still haunted by the image of that woman with a baby on her back searching desperately for a husband who never came home. She explained that her husband's wages supported not only her, but his brother, his grandmother, and number of children. Many lives have been shattered by this tragedy, as we as a nation need to hang our heads in shame, as this is not only a national disaster, but a national embarrassment in our new democratic order. Baie lewens is verpletter, Speaker. Deur hierdie tragedie en ons as 'n nasie moet ons hoofde in skaamte laat sak, want dit is nie net 'n nasionale ramp nie, maar 'n nasionale verleentheid in ons nuwe demokrasie. Our collective psyche has been wounded, and we must use this as an opportunity to ask some hard questions about our society as a whole. And Speaker, some of those questions, such as whether the police are fully trained by means of methods to deal with situations where big crowds are involved by using, and I would like to emphasize, by using water cannons, shields, or rubber bullets instead of live ammunition. Is it necessary to go on strike with knives, guns, and pangas? Should it have reached a point where the police have to open fire and use strong arm tactics in line with the dangerous shoot-to-kill mentality? Do the unions in South Africa have too much power? Hence, they must stop trying to display power through membership. As a result, this has happened. As a nation, how do we respond to future strikes in our country? And will we ever learn from this? We need to recommit ourselves, Speaker, to the principle of non-violence and the right to life and human dignity, as the incident has taught us how fragile life can be. We need to question our political systems. We need to question the police. We need to question our unions. We need to question our labor relations systems that could clearly not respond properly to this escalation in tensions. I would like to pass also my condolences to the family who have lost their loved ones. I thank you.
I thank the honourable member. I now wish to invite the honourable Bantu Holomisa to address the House.
Mr. Speaker, Honourable Deputy President, and honourable members. Uyilalele le Nkosi Mthera Mkhuluwa, iyabetha mkhulu, iyayivusa debate till the House yapila. May the souls of the mine workers who lost their lives at the Marikana massacre last week rest in peace. To their families and friends, our hearts and prayers are with you during this time of grief. Honorable Minister Mthethwa, I differ completely with the tactics SABC used to disarm and disperse striking mine workers. Firstly, the police surrounded the place the mine workers had occupied with razor wire and only left one exit. Interestingly, this one and only available exit point was where the heavily armed contingent of police had gathered to oversee what was supposed to be a peaceful dispersal of the gathering. Secondly, your SABC members then fired tear gas at the workers, forcing them to run all over the place, looking for an exit point. However, as some were running towards the exit, we are told that the police fired them with live ammunition. The police accused the workers of advancing towards them with intentions to attack them, when it appears that the workers were only seeking a place of safety. According to the workers' version of events, this is what led to the brutal murder of 34 mine workers in Marikana last week. The mistakes one wonders, these mistakes one wonders, whether a plan to ambush the workers had not been carefully crafted. Because by running towards the exit, the workers seem to have walked right into a police trap. Sadly, however, Marikana massacre type incidents are here to stay unless we do away with the deployment of people with no professional police background to senior SABC levels to command juniors with military training. Perhaps it is time this House to review the mechanism of civilian oversight in SABC. Should we not confine civilian oversight to the office of the minister and let the experienced police personnel run the SABC? Another area of concern is the proximity of certain trade unions to the ruling party and the deployments of ruling party senior individuals to the private sector that have compromised the lonmin workers. For example, just a few hours before the Marikana shootout, NUM, the police, and lonmin reportedly held a meeting to discuss the situation without involving the other union, AMCU. We should not lose sight of the fact that both NUM and AMCU workers have one thing in common. They demand a salary adjustment. This House should therefore closely monitor these salary negotiations given questionable involvement of the police in this labor dispute. Most shocking, during the visit of parliamentary opposition parties yesterday to Marikana, was the extent of poverty in which the mine workers live. It is ironic to see that the people responsible for extracting our country's mineral wealth live in conditions of squalor. We call on lonmin mines BEE partners to approach their partners in the UK to do something about the plight of their mine workers. What we saw there yesterday is completely unacceptable, especially when considering the fact that some of these BEE partners have impeccable struggle credentials. In conclusion, the UDM supports President Zuma's decision to institute a commission of inquiry into the Marikana massacre. We, however, believe that it should be a judicial commission of inquiry. The terms of reference for the commission should be broad enough to allow for investigation into investment schemes that trade unions offer mine workers, among other things. Workers complain about monthly deduction from their salaries to pay for investment schemes that never yield results for them. The question is, who really benefits from them? Finally, we also need to investigate the extent to which the involvement of some of trade union investment arms in the ownership and control of the same mine.
Thank you, Honorable.
Which compromises work struggles as alleged by the workers. Akuhlanga lungehlanga tuthwini enkosi.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable the Minister of Mineral Resources.
Deputy Speaker, Honorable Deputy President, Honorable members, members of the gallery. We gather today in this House in a spirit of deep sadness and outpouring of condolences. We are revisited, at least in some ways, with the same feelings of wretchedness that marked events in our many years of struggle. Such memories and emotions we could confidently have believed were confined to the past, but no, if though we are nearly 2 decades into our freedom, they are with us today. We must deal with them. We must rid them finally from this land. Our freedom mourn makes us care deeply. We weep together as we pause in the everyday course of our lives solemnly to remember those who died in such appalling scenes of tragedy during the past few days. The tragic events at lonmin Marikana mines that reverberated in every corner of our country shame us all. They drive us on to make amends, to review in utmost depth the happenings in our sector, to check any further outbreaks, indeed, to ensure that these things never happen again. The events should refocus the collective mind of our nation on answers, not recriminations, on rationality, not rhetoric. We should refuse to be cowed into a state of mind where we accept the notion, popular in certain circles abroad, that we are nothing but a country at war with itself, far from it. As the African National Congress, the party to which I belong, has consistently and throughout its 100 years stood on the side of natural justice and the right of those who, through the sweat of their brows, continue to the well-being of us all. Having spent the countless hours, either in meetings or consultations with affected parties, I have come to understand that the event that started from a wildcat strike by approximately 3,000 rock drillers on the 10th of August, a day after we celebrated our nation's Women's Day. that day is a bittersweet reminder that mothers lost sons, wives lost husbands, and the whole nation lost some of the cream of our legendary endeavors underground. We have met with all stakeholders in the industry, and it is clear that we will have to work together in tackling the many socio-economic challenges in the mining industry. The action taken by the President to cut short his work to visit Maputo and return to the country, as well as our observations on a visit to the mine on Friday, and the decision to set up the Interministerial Committee, which spent the whole day at the mine yesterday, are testimony to that government cares. It is that the government does immensely about the plight of the affected families, including those of workers who are in hospital, who were visited by a president showing grave concern all over. We agree sincerely with the President's assertion that this tragedy should be a lesson to all of us. We further support the call by the President to set up a commission of inquiry that the President announced, and as the department will cooperate fully. So we boldly say in this House today, notwithstanding the shocking events, we remain firmly a constitutional democracy underpinned by a stoical commitment to uphold the rule of law and protect the rights enshrined in the Bill of Rights. As a mining jurisdiction, we have maintained those principles and built into it our legislation, mechanisms that ensure transformation and sustainable growth of the country. We did this in 2004. We will introduce the Mineral Petroleum Development Act amendments for the first time in the history of our country. We saw the recognition of the country's minerals as belonging to its people and the vesting of the custodianship of the mineral resources to the state instead of the individual ownership, as was the case before. These changes were introduced against the background of ensuring that all South Africans benefit from the mineral resources of the country. The new mineral dispensation also introduced socio-economic responsibility to all holders of mining concessions through the introduction of the Mining Charter. Through this policy, a document which all mining companies must comply has been incorporated, the social labor plan, and the communities. All mining companies or holders of the mining rights are required to develop and implement this plan as they engage in their respective mine ventures. Essential undertakings have been described for stakeholders to comply with in order to ensure an enabling environment for the transformation of the sector. This includes human resource development, employment equity, mine communities and rural communities, housing and living conditions, ownership, and joint ventures. As part of the implementation of the Mining Charter commitment, mining companies are expected to address housing and living conditions of mine workers. Further single-sex hostels should be eradicated and informal settlements in mining communities should be addressed. These are some of the issues we as government, we as the National Congress, the African National Congress, managed to put in place. I must also say, this is the ANC which led the process of transformation in the mining industry. And the leadership of the ANC was there. We've been there all the time. The difference between us and some of you, we don't do it in public. We engage, it's not new to us, we do it all the time. As a department, we're working to ensure that companies do comply and implement their transformation commitments. In this regard, the department is addressing, amongst others, strengthening of compliance inspection of Mining Charter, strengthening capacity and social labor projects, better integration of social and labor plans by numerous companies operating in the same area for a maximum impact. It surely cannot be correct that mining communities such as those in Marikana and other mining areas should see prosperity on conspicuous consumption by companies and mining bosses whilst they continue to experience poverty. The mining must redouble efforts in the course of good social and labor programs to ensure that this happens. We call on the entire mining industry to go beyond dealing with us as a mere regulator towards a situation where they themselves, they take initiative in being highly visible and innovating in addressing the socio-economic issues in the mining and surrounding communities. Transparency should be the order of the day. These communities can be the ones who do the actual peer review of the situation. If they are unhappy, the industry is also equally so. So if we all can really work together in a spirit of collaboration and fairness, with minimal recrimination, we can use this tragedy to undo many of the wrong practices that still marks the mining industry. That will be a monument to the fallen at Marikane. We shall be able in time to look back with sad but steadfast memories, committed as we shall be to bring about harmony in the industry instead of strife. So we now need to reflect on what we are doing to ensure that these events do not happen again. The mining industry must work in developing practices which ensure that collective bargaining happens routinely in conditions of peaceful coexistence, but also informed by the current Labor Relations Act. I want to say, this country has a Labor Relations Act. We follow unions which we know are registered. We deal with everyone without exclusion anyone. Honorable Lekota, we have never met with AMCU. We were not aware of AMCU until the incidents which we saw recently. Yes, if you are their representatives, you can do that. I am a minister indeed of mining. We've been working with all stakeholders in making sure we bring change in the mining industry. I must indicate we will continue to interact with those who abide by the law. I must also indicate, Minister Lekota, this government never called soldiers to attack communities. During your era as the Minister of Defense in Khutsong, you called soldiers to attack. You are the one who is more brutal than the ANC. With the Minister of Labor, we will closely look at the situation and continue to monitor in a way. Shut up. We will continue
Point of
to
order,
monitor the
Madam
space.
Deputy Speaker.
There's a
I
point-
rise on a point of order.
There's a point of order.
I submit that the use of the word shut up is unparliamentary, and I'd ask you to ask the Minister to withdraw.
It is unparliamentary, Minister.
I withdraw, but also, Honorable Speaker,
Continue, Minister.
Point of order, Deputy Speaker.
on,
Will you please ask the Honourable Minister to also withdraw the reference to Lekota, who sent his soldiers to attack people? That never happened.
if it, Honorable Deputy Speaker, it was in this country, it's public knowledge. During his term as the Minister of Defense, he went to the West Rand. It's public knowledge.
May I rise on a point of order, Madam Speaker? May I rise on a point of order? This is unfounded. I have never sent soldiers to Khutsong to kill people. It never happened. Otherwise, it would have meant that the government of the ANC instructed me to do so. It's not true.
Honorable Speaker, Deputy
Continue.
Speaker, Honorable Deputy Speaker, just enlightening the House that I am a living witness to that event, which Honorable Minister is referring to. Former Minister Lekota did that. I was there with him.
On a point of order.
Honorable members,
I do just want to say, if that is what the member says, then that is the African National Congress that did that. And I want to say, if she says that, and I want to say it didn't, but if she says that,
Honorable member.
the ANC is a party in power, not the individual.
I rise on a point of order, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, may I rise on a point of order?
No. I want us to continue with the debate of
We are
today,
appealing that.
which is very, very important. Please, can Honorable Minister proceed? I'm sure the other matter will be considered later.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. As I've indicated, we will work closely with the Minister of Labor to deal with the issues of the trade unions that are organized in this sector, but also which are responsible and can also take responsibility for their actions. A task team is being established to deal with issues such as ensuring that stakeholders have a common understanding of collective bargaining and other events, the importance of leadership on all sides in the industry, the need for security, the elimination of loopholes, and ensuring improved social and living conditions in mining areas as articulated in the Mining Charter. These are essentials as we move forward. Finally, Honorable Deputy Speaker, we need to realize that we need to appeal to this House, not only to share in a nation's collective grief and use that as a point-scoring matter, which all members need to be ready in ensuring that we exercise restraint when it comes to rushing to judgments. Let's allow the President and the Commission of Inquiry to go out and ensure that it makes all the necessary findings. We must not try to mislead the nation. As we stand here today, we need to make sure we bow our heads in recognition of all those who passed on, including the police officers who were unfortunately killed in this particular situation. No one wishes anyone to hold back on sincerely held views and factual and constructive criticism. I must say we welcome that, but with at least one formerly buoyant part of our mining industry facing onerous new challenges. It can be hoped that the net effect of comments will be allowed the inquiry to run its course unprejudged, and we need to help in this particular area and to help to secure and not damage our common future. Once more, we welcome and will support and cooperate with the Commission of Inquiry from the President. I must also indicate, as we deal with this House, we will continue to take leadership without fear and lead in the front, and we will not, as the Department of Mineral and Energy, on behalf of government, continue to heckle. We will find solutions in contributing towards creating a stable South Africa in this country, and we are committed to that. As we speak today, we will go back to the ground and work on the ground, and not go there to make point scoring, but also to pose for TVs. We will do the actual work. Thank you.